Why is it called menopause? Wouldn't it be more appropriate for it to be called womenopause?
Sure, there's a reason.
Is it because it's like telling men, wait, pause?
Or you're going to want to pause. If I was in the class with just the Hispanics or the Mexicans, I probably wouldn't have been as bullied. But the classes that I was in, there were mostly white people and white teachers. And it was just the hardest thing for me to try to be like them or act like them or dress like them when I dress like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Awad Pod. Today I am joined by my little sister, Malaka Mustafa, who is also known as Certified PA Hijabi on social media. And in typical Awad Pod fashion, we have a gift, which is a custom CEO lawyer sweater that has your name and your social media handle on there. There you go. Malaki, welcome to the show.
Thank you. That's so cute.
You like it?
I do.
Are you excited to be here?
And it's freezing outside, so this is perfect.
Why did you decide to start weight loss with Malaka?
So Mama had a significant amount of fluid, and Dr. Barber actually came in and evaluated her, and he's like, she needs a surgery, but she's not going to get any better if she doesn't lose the weight. So Mama's tried to lose a lot of weight over the years, different exercise, different diets, different things, and she just struggled because she's just like all of us. We love to eat. You know, I love to eat, and so it's hard to know what
doesn't eat that much, man. I think she just
eats at the wrong times, and she eats a lot of the wrong things whenever she's in the mood for that thing. You know, she doesn't necessarily, neither do I, know how to just eat like a small portion of something. Like if there's something very delicious in front of me, I will just destroy it. You know, Mama does the same thing. So anyway, over the years, I've realized that, okay, Mama needs to do something about this. She got a great primary care doctor. Shout out Dr. Zazana. She had actually recommended that she get started on Wegovy, which is the brand name of the GLP-1 medication, which stands for a glucagon-like peptide medication. Pretty much all it does is it tricks your brain to think that you're full, and it slows down gastric emptying, and it kind of upsets your stomach when you eat things that are unhealthy. So you get that immediate, dissatisfaction when you eat the nasty foods that are unhealthy for you. So those three ways all together kind of help you lose weight.
Sounds like the second one means you just kind of stay full of shit.
Kind of, but if you increase your fiber intake and you increase your fluid, your body does what it needs to do to keep you regulated and slow you down from eating so much junk, especially because the majority of the foods that we are offered here in this country is junk. You know, you can eat the same thing in another country and it doesn't do nearly the same thing to your body that it does to you here. So it does slow everything down, but it also just makes you not want to eat, which decreases your calorie intake.
I heard that the weight loss medications that are out there now, they were primarily designed as diabetic medications.
Yeah, they've been on the market for 20 years for diabetes. And then people started to notice that as a result of the A1C decreasing, as a result of decreasing your craving for the sugar, people were also starting to experience weight loss. So now they're being marketed for weight loss.
You know, I noticed that a lot of the COVID clinics that were around in 2020 and 2021 turned into like weight loss clinics. Is everyone just selling Ozempic and Wegovy now? How does someone know if they're buying this from the proper source? What is the proper way to get the weight loss medication?
So if you go to your primary care doctor, usually primary care doctors will only prescribe you the prescription, the regular Wegovy, Ozempic, semaglutide medication that comes from a pharmacy that is regulated by the FDA, and they prescribe that medication for you. But because so many people want this medication now, it became shortage list. The pharmaceutical companies cannot keep up with the demand. So now compounding pharmacies are allowed to make this medication. And compounding pharmacies are not exactly always FDA regulated, which could potentially be a problem. There's two kinds of compounding pharmacies if you want me to go into all those details.
He's important. I don't know.
There's a 503A and a 503B kind of pharmacy. A 503A pharmacy is a pharmacy that makes a medication and it just does its best to replicate what the primary care doctor has prescribed for you. It's not necessarily FDA regulated. But the other, it's a 503B, it actually is FDA regulated. So if you're going to get a compounded medication, you really want to make sure that you're getting it from a 503B pharmacy because these are regulated by the FDA, which is the same thing that a regular prescription is regulated by. So you're making sure that you're getting the good stuff and nothing else is included in the medication that could potentially cause weird side effects.
So the 503A
There are regulations.
pharmacies
Yeah, there are.
are not necessarily FDA approved.
Exactly.
So they can hypothetically throw in a little bit of
Anything else
into the syringe.
Yeah.
And because it's an expensive medication,
People will buy it.
so, okay, what is the purest form of the weight loss medication?
So,
Is it the semaglutide?
so when you say semaglutide,
Semaglutide?
that is the active ingredient in Ozempic. So they recreate the active ingredient and they compound it. When you look at the vial, it will say 100% semaglutide on the vial. But if it's from a compounding pharmacy, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's 100% semaglutide. It's just majority semaglutide. The other things, if you test it, it potentially might not show up, but that doesn't mean other things are not in it. And the FDA didn't look at it to regulate it to say that it's okay, so people can get away with selling semaglutide when it's not exactly 100% identical to the Wegovy or the other medications that are set out by, the bigger pharmaceutical.
It's like throwing some baking soda in the cocaine mix. It's not pure, but it's still gets the job done.
It does get the job done.
But obviously, it's not a joke. Obviously, there's a lot of drugs that are being, thrown around in America. And if you're not getting it from a proper source, then you don't even know.
Absolutely.
You don't know what's in there.
I always tell patients to go to their primary care doctor first. And if their primary care doctor will prescribe the medication for you, usually you have to have diabetes, PCOS, insulin resistance. Even if you have a BMI of over 30, they'll prescribe it for you. So if you have any of these things, a primary care doctor will try to prescribe it for you. Now, it's another issue to see if the insurance company will actually pay for it, because these are very expensive medications. But if your PCP writes it for you, the insurance company pays for it, take that medicine. Don't go to a compounding pharmacy. Compounding pharmacy should be the second, third, or fourth option.
So if someone doesn't have health insurance and they're overweight and they need help with losing weight, whether it's for health issues or diabetes, they don't have a primary care physician, what is the best way for someone to get the weight loss medication?
So if you go on Google, you'll find a lot of facilities that prescribe it. That not all of these facilities are made equal, right? So you will find that some of these providers will just give you the medication. They'll say, what's your BMI? And they might ask a couple of questions and just give you the medication. There are some other clinics that do a little bit more work, and they actually draw your blood, they review your blood work, they make sure that you're a candidate for the medication, because obviously this medication can still have side effects, negative side effects. The medication gets absorbed through the kidneys. You want to make sure you have good and healthy kidneys before you start the medication. There's been some tests that raise concern that it could possibly cause osteoporosis, especially in menopausal women. There is concern that it could potentially cause thyroid cancer. There's been a lot of tests done about these things. And if you go to a clinic that is very educated about the medication, you will see all the blood work that they're ordering for you, why they're ordering it for you, and they're making sure that you're healthy while you're on the medication. Now, personally, for me, I'm extremely fortunate that my husband is actually a pharmacist. And he just works for CVS for the most part, but he also works with a guy that works directly with a compounding pharmacy. So we are able to see exactly where the medication is coming from. We're able to see the sterility of the medication. We're able to see how long it actually lasts for the patient. And we can confirm that it's from a 503B pharmacy. So it's FDA regulated and approved.
So, but the first step is for someone to actually get their blood work done.
Absolutely, always.
What are the things? I don't want people to self-diagnose, but let's be honest, man. A lot of people call me at my law firm and try to act like they know how to handle a case from start to finish. And I'm sure they probably think the same when it comes to weight loss medications. Like, as long as I order this vial and stick it somewhere, I should lose weight. But what are the major red flags? Like, first, you should get your blood work done. And what are the things in the blood work if you're trying to, let's say, figure this out on your own because you're trying to save money and you just want to get to the weight loss medication? What are the things you need to pay attention to in your blood work, blood tests, that'll tell you, yes, you might be a candidate, or no, you should consult with an actual physician?
Okay, so even before the blood work, a family history of thyroid cancer, a family history of medullary thyroid cancer means you're not a candidate for this medication, because there's been some studies that were done. And the studies were on rats, so, give and take some, but because there was a direct correlation with the tests that were done on the rats, showing that there was an increased risk for cancer, of specifically thyroid cancer. If you have a family history of it, you're going to be at an increased risk of developing thyroid cancer if you're put on this medication.
So don't take weight loss medication, specifically Ozempic, Wegovy, all these other ones.
Yep. If there's a family history of thyroid cancer.
If you have a family history of thyroid cancer. Okay, but that's just what they know of now. There might be other types of cancers that you're at a higher risk of.
Yes. And also there are a lot of cancers that you will potentially decrease the likelihood of it by being on this medication because it corrects your insulin problems, it corrects the glucose level, and all of that is directly correlated to other kinds of cancers. So the list of cancers that GLP-1 medications can actually decrease is significantly larger than the list that we currently have of cancers that can be caused by being on a GLP-1. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So what other things do you pay attention to in the blood work?
The thyroid cancer is a thing. And also, if you have a history of pancreatitis or have had pancreatitis in the past, this medication can cause you to experience pancreatitis. And pancreatitis is life-threatening. And it's usually severe abdominal pain that you have. The reason that just this GLP-1 medication can cause this is because it actually puts more pressure on the pancreas to produce more insulin. Because you're putting more pressure on the pancreas, pancreatitis can happen, inflammation of the pancreas, and this can be deadly. So if you've ever had pancreatitis in the past, you kind of want to be mindful of that. Thyroid cancer, pancreatitis, and then looking at the blood work, you want to make sure your kidney function is okay because the medicine goes through the kidney to work. Other things that I look for, there's been a growing concern for the osteoporosis like we had discussed, so now I check vitamin D levels for every single menopausal woman. You know, as a result of going through menopause, you're no longer secreting estrogen, and that will decrease the amount of calcium that's in your body. It will decrease the amount of vitamin D that's in your body. These two things will increase the likelihood of having osteoporosis. So I check the vitamin D level to make sure that it's at a normal range before I start you on this medication.
I mean, I have a serious question. Why is it called menopause instead of womenopause?
I'm sure there's a reason.
Men just got to get involved in everything. Why is it called menopause? Wouldn't it be more appropriate for it to be called womenopause?
I feel like I should know the answer to this.
It's probably just...
No, I'm sure there's a reason.
Is it because it's like telling men, wait, pause.
Or you're going to want to pause.
Do not proceed. Back to the weight loss medication. So thyroid cancer, if you have a history of it in your family, probably avoid these weight loss medications. Pancreatitis or any injury or pancreas problems, you're at a higher risk of pancreatitis. Vitamin D deficiency?
Yeah, vitamin D deficiency. But usually, if you get your patient on vitamin D before you start the semaglutide, they should be okay.
And then what other things do you notice before someone becomes a candidate for weight loss medication? What are some of the other things that you pay attention to? And this is not an exhaustive list by any means. I'm not telling you guys to just go and, he researched it. The term menopause comes from the Greek words men, meaning month, and pausis, meaning cessation, essentially signifying the time when a woman's monthly menstrual cycle ends, making the end of her reproductive years. Makes sense?
See, there's a reason for it.
There's a reason for everything. So, vitamin D deficiency, thyroid cancer, or any sort of pancreas problems, those are the main things that you look for before prescribing someone weight loss medication.
Yeah. I also had a patient recently who, now this isn't anything that came up with the research, this is just a common sense thing to me. We were doing a full review of systems, asking questions about every single system. And she had mentioned to me that in the past, she used to be bulimic. So she has body dysmorphia. She really, really thinks that she's extremely big when really she's not. Her BMI was probably 28, which is not that big of a BMI. This was a patient that I did not prescribe the medication to, and I told her to wait a couple of weeks. And I wanted to reevaluate her because I wanted her to see a psychiatrist. Because this medicine is going to make her not want to eat. My concern would be she's not going to want to eat, plus she's going to force herself to throw up, and that's going to cause even more problems. So I asked her to go follow up with somebody before I was going to prescribe the medication for her. But the pancreatitis, the vitamin D, and the thyroid cancer, those are the biggest things.
You've gone through a lot of things in your career. I mean, even though you're still fairly young, you've accomplished a lot, mashallah, in such a short amount of time. And now you've kind of become the go-to person for weight loss in our community. And you have the Weight Loss with Malaka program. But before that, you were mostly an orthopedic PA. But even before that, you were working at the ER. And then before that, you were working in pharmacies.
Yes.
And then before, so it's like, okay, how did you become weight loss with Malaka? Walk us through that history.
Okay. So the whole pharmacy, in undergrad, I really wanted to be a pharmacist. That was the goal.
Why did you want to be a pharmacist?
I thought it was a chill, easy job. I thought it was, I enjoyed medicine. I thought it was going to be chill. But then I worked as a technician at Walgreens for, I think, 6 months. And I realized this was not the job for me. There wasn't as much interaction with the patients. The pharmacist and the patient didn't necessarily have as much interaction as I wanted or I thought I would like. So I quickly changed my path in undergrad and decided to go down the medical route.
But it was still the same pre-med, same biology pre-med, right?
It was, but I changed all the extracurricular stuff that I was doing. So pretty much I was working as a pharmacy technician, shadowing pharmacists. Then I switched. Then I started to shadow doctors and I started to shadow PAs because I decided that was more so the route that I wanted to take. Initially, actually, the goal was to try to either go the MD or the DO route. So an MD is a medical doctor and the DO is a doctor of osteopathic medicine. Both are now very well respected. I ended up
MDs more so than DOs, I guess.
probably just a little bit, but it's shifting. I think it's becoming a little bit more.
I think
equal.
people appreciate DOs more when they get to know a DO.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because the MD is almost always just Western medicine. CO has a little bit more of Eastern Valley. If I were to go get treatment, I would prefer a DO than an MD. But culturally, they make it seem like MD is the real doctor.
They do. I think DOs also get like training on how to manipulate the spine as well.
Yes. DOs are the real chiros.
Yes.
Right. I mean,
that's like
it's a medical doctor that is allowed to do chiropractic manipulation. No, not even just physical manipulation.
Yeah. Yes. So they actually have a little bit more training. So it's interesting that in our eyes, we see the MD is a little bit higher up when a DO actually gets a little bit more training. They get the same training that the MD gets and then a little bit more. So I would prefer to see a DO.
You hold a couple of unique titles and you have some specific goals that you've accomplished that no one else in the family has accomplished. There's plenty early on. You were the first female black belt in the family, first female to get first place in competition. You were the first Awad in general to finish your bachelor's degree in just 3.5 years instead of 4. I do remember that. I have a very good memory. And it was also in biology, which is way harder than what all of us were doing because no one else did biology as undergrad. Why didn't you go the legal route like all the other normal folks?
Normal folks, because you guys are normal.
No.
No.
Yeah, but like what? I guess wouldn't have it made sense for you to go the legal route, or you had no interest in it?
Okay, I was so obsessed with standing out. I was so obsessed with wanting to be different. Like I was almost always kind of in the shadow, and I wanted to just do something different.
Yeah, and now you're literally like the doctor in the family. Like everyone goes to you whenever they have any sort of questions on the medical side, and no one else has that ability. But you struggled a lot.
I did.
I mean, let's take it back. Even before PA school and before that struggle in Knoxville. I mean, we remember. Not everyone remembers, but I remember. But even before that, I mean, you were bullied as a kid, as a Muslim girl in Dalton, Georgia.
I feel like a lot of the things that happen, I try to like block them out because they just upset me so much. But it's funny, just yesterday, I was sitting with my husband and I was talking to him about some of the things that I remember in middle school. And I almost feel like the bullying was encouraged in our middle school, in our community, because our teachers were also...
They're racist.
I don't want to say that word.
No, it's true. It's true. They were racist. Look, in Dalton, there were the whites and there were the Mexicans. And we didn't fit in necessarily any category, but we fit more within the Mexican category than the white category. So we were the Mexicans that stood out.
Yes, and also, we were also the group that... Oh, we weren't a group, we were just one family. But we were in the gifted program, okay? And I hate to say it like this, but the majority of the students that were in the gifted program were usually the white students. There was probably 1 or 2 Hispanic, but they were mostly white. So
the gifted program is like for the kids that had really good grades and that were, I think they called it advanced program. They changed it from gifted to advanced
something.
Yeah, in the 90s and the 2000s, they would just say what's on their mind, you know?
Right, and there was like you couldn't necessarily argue with a student that was backed by the teacher, which made things so much worse, I felt like. But the point that I was trying to get at is if I was in the class with just the Hispanics or the Mexicans, I probably wouldn't have been as bullied. But the classes that I was in, there were mostly white people and white teachers, and it was just the hardest thing for me to try to be like them or act like them or dress like them when I dress like this, right? So it was such a struggle. There were so many times where, man, in PE, we would be playing different games, and one of these games, I think it was called Angle Ball. I don't know if you remember Angle Ball, but you use the entire basketball court, and there's a ball that's on a pole on this side, there's a ball on a pole on this side, and there's two teams. And the point of the game is to grab the ball that's in your hand and race across the court and throw the ball at the ball that's on top of the pole to try to knock it down. Now, people from the other team can tag you, and that forces you to freeze. So once you freeze, you have to throw the ball. Now, I was very fast. We're very athletic. You know, we did karate, right?
Oh, yeah.
We were very athletic. So
we are definitely an athletic family, and we were a competitive athletes too.
Yes, and I loved this game. There was a group of girls that just absolutely could not stand me, and I never knew why. So every time we played this game, they would run up from behind me and go on the top of my head and yank off my hijab to slow me down. And that was always the way to slow me down, because if you tag me, okay, yes, I'm going to stop and I'm going to throw the ball, but like slow me down and kind of like I couldn't humiliate me. I just couldn't, like I would just drop the ball at that point because I'm like so like embarrassed and trying to focus on how to, cover my hair. And they never got in trouble. They never got in trouble. If the teacher ever said anything, they'd be, oh, it was just an accident. Oh, she tripped. Never got in trouble. I actually remember a time in 7th grade. I played on the basketball team, and the coach hated me, man. The coach hated me. Dalton Middle School, 7th grade. The coach hated me. I don't know why. I mean, I do know why, but
yeah, they hated us because we were Muslim.
Maybe,
we're
but
different.
This is when I knew that this guy was a racist jerk. It was Ramadan, okay? And it was picture day. We were probably 2 days away from Eid. And in normal, like, Eid spirit, my mom would get us excited and pumped for Eid, and the girls would get henna on their hands. And I loved this part about Eid. 2 days before Eid, we had picture day at school, and I had the henna on my hands. And my coach, my basketball coach, saw what was on my hands, and he says, Malaka, what is that filth on your hands? And I look at him, like, it was so embarrassing. Like, it was so amazing. And it was beautiful. Like, it was so detailed. It was such a beautiful design. If you actually looked at it, you would appreciate that, this isn't just me, like, marking on my hand. This was actually, like, a very beautiful cultural design. And he just said that in front of everybody, in front of the photographer. I remember looking at the photographer, and the photographer, like, was so confused. Like, why would a coach talk to a player like that? And I told him, oh, this is actually for religious reasons. And all he said was, oh, well, put your hand behind your back during the picture. And I'm just like, okay, like, I'll do that. That's no problem. But it was so embarrassing. Punch him in the face. It was so...
Makes me so angry even just hearing these stories.
It was so bad. Like, and I knew he disliked me, but I loved basketball so much that I just stayed on the team,
You played tennis too in high school, right?
I played tennis too, but I was more fortunate with my tennis coach. He was a good guy. And I played with Osama.
That helped.
That helped because Osama was a beast,
Yeah, and look, I think growing up with 4 older brothers, it had its advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the advantages first.
The advantages of having... So it just really depends on the time frame you're talking about in life, because I think we just all struggled a lot in middle school and high school because we were all bullied in different ways, So I didn't necessarily know how to come to you guys for help because I felt like you guys also had your own struggles. Of course, they were different than mine. But like in middle school and high school, I just kind of kept these stories to myself. I remember the first time I ever told you, like, yeah, Ali, I get bullied all the time. And your face changed during the middle of our conversation. You're like, you get bullied? What do they do to you? And I just told you about the pulling of my hijab and a teacher that once told me to sit outside just because I told her I didn't like the music that she was playing while we were trying to write an essay because I couldn't focus. So instead of turning off the music, she told me to sit outside. God, I hated that. Like, it's humiliating again, like, it's telling me to get up and go outside as if I'm in trouble, but I'm trying to focus to write this essay you told me to say. So anyway.
No, they did the same thing to us, but I didn't consider it as racism. I considered it as I'm different, so they just don't like me. But when I was talking to Osama about this, especially because we played football together, he was reminding me how the head coach was bragging about how he kicked us off the football team. We didn't get kicked off the team. I was the strongest kid in high school. I was the strongest by far in high school. You remember in high school how they had the catamount wall, the iron catamounts, and they would have all the scores? Well, I'm very good in math. So I calculated exactly how they came up with those scores. They would take your weight, and then they would take a multiple of your weight based on what you were actually lifting. And then they would combine all of the major lifts, like with front squat, trap squat. They didn't do deadlifts in high school, but they did do bench press. They did leg press. And I weighed 135 pounds as a senior in high school, 108 pounds when I was freshman year. I was bench pressing double my body weight. I could do more pull-ups. I had a 40-inch vertical. For my size, I was way stronger than everyone else. And when I finally asked the coach, when am I going to get my name on that board? Because we just did all of the weight lifts and you have my score. When are we going to put my name on the board? Because that person had a 3,000 score. I'm like at a 7 or 8,000. I'm higher than everyone else that's ever come into this school. Oh, we don't do that anymore. They changed the entire history of the gym because they didn't want my name on the board. And what I really wanted was the Letterman jacket in high school. I really wanted that because it was like the cool thing for football players. And yeah, let's not forget, we were embarrassed about where we lived. I didn't want the cheerleaders to come to my house and see where we lived. Yeah, I don't want them to decorate. But I just want the Letterman jacket. And all you got to do is play football for 2 years and you get the Letterman jacket. And so I played, but during Ramadan, I'm not actually dressed up. It's not like I was on the varsity team anyway. No one else was actually playing. I showed up. I went to the dinners and stayed quiet when everyone else was eating the steak dinners. I went into the rooms. I went into the huddles with them, learned how to do the Bible, the prayers that they had. I memorized these things so I could fit in with them. And then my junior year, when I saw the list of everyone getting the Letterman jackets, my name wasn't on the list. I'm like, Coach, why isn't my name on the list? It's like, well, because you didn't play. Well, I showed up every day. There were kids that were in crutches. They weren't coming and playing in the games. There were other kids that didn't even show up half of the semester and they still got, what is it really? And instead of giving me the jacket, he instead said he kicked me off of the football team so that I wouldn't get the jacket. And I thought this was just normal. But later I realized, no, people are just racist and they hate us because we're different. But they hate us even more because we're better.
I was going to say, we were very athletic. We were very smart. Well, still very athletic, very smart. And we look different. So it was hard, I guess, for them to adapt or accept something like this or someone like this. Why didn't we look like them?
But it got easier over the years, right? When do you think you started getting confidence? Because I mean, I remember you telling me stories, and I don't want to really go into the stories because I actually get angry when you tell me these stories. Like even now I have rage in my heart when you tell me that kids were bullying you as a kid. And I remember you saying that you would go and have lunch in the bathrooms because you didn't have any friends to sit with.
That was just the worst. That was also in 7th grade. I hate remembering that. I hope that our kids never have to deal with that. Inshallah, hala, like things are different,
But how much of it was it because you stuck out as a sore thumb because you wore a hijab?
100%. Because all those girls. Okay, so let me tell you what happened. Okay, so in 7th grade, it was just an open cafeteria. As soon as you get to the cafeteria, you can sit down wherever you want. And we didn't have assigned seating in the cafeteria, but you kind of sit with your classmates. Like, that's just how it goes. You don't sit with random people. So the group of girls that I was in school with, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, they were all the same group of girls because this was the gifted class. So we all knew each other. In 4th grade, they were my friends. In 5th grade, they were my friends. In 6th grade, I started to wear the hijab. And then all of a sudden, there was like a shift in dynamic between our relationship. And, I even remember being in 5th grade and telling the girls, next year I'm going to start wearing the hijab. I'm going to be the same person, but I'm going to look a little bit different. And everybody was like, yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be great. Everybody, yeah, nobody said anything. Nobody thought anything of it, right? Or nobody said anything until 6th grade actually came and things slowly started to change. In 6th grade, I didn't really know how to act. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know how to make friends. So in 6th grade, I remember sitting at the allergy table. This was the table where the kids that had allergies to like peanuts and stuff would sit because I didn't have anywhere else to sit. So I would just sit there. In 7th grade, I decided to be a little bit more courageous, So the group of girls that were in my gifted class, I decided to sit with them because they know me. Like we've been friends for so many years now. The first couple of days, the first couple of weeks, everything was fine and dandy. And then I think it was maybe a month in, a new student came to the school. A new white, I hate to say it like that, a new white girl came to the school. And everybody wanted to be her friend. And I guess everybody knew her family too, right? And at the table that I was sitting at, there was no open seats. It was a full table. And so what started to happen is when this girl transferred to our school is the other girls would tell her to sit in my seat and then I'll just find somewhere else to sit. Well, when I started to notice this was happening and that girl would sit in my seat, I would just sit in the seat next to it. And then the girl started to get upset that I was sitting there. So it started to become a race who was going to sit there fastest, right? So as soon as the bell rang for lunch, I would just race to the cafeteria and sit down and not even get my lunch just to be able to sit at that table. Like it was getting ridiculous. And then finally I was like, okay, I can't keep doing this. So I started to pack my lunch. The bell would ring to go to lunch. I'd have my lunch ready and I'd sit down and I'd eat. One day I had to stay after class for something. I don't remember what happened, but I sat down, I put my stuff down in the cafeteria when everybody was still in line. And then I came back, I saw my stuff pushed on the ground. And I was like, hey, this was my seat. And this one girl looks at me and she says, I don't know why you keep sitting here. Nobody wants you here. And it was so hurtful. Like, I didn't even know what to say. It was so, like, I was like, I know. The sad thing is, I know you don't want me here. Like, I know you don't want me. It was so bad. I didn't know what to say. I literally just took my food and went to the bathroom. Okay, I know you don't like it, but where else am I going to sit, God, I will never forget that girl. I will never forget that day because, like, okay, you're not always going to get along with people. You're not always going to like everybody, but damn, don't be an ass, I'll never forget that day. Anyway.
You think that something shifted in your mind from middle school to high school that started giving you more confidence? When did you decide to start fighting back these bullies?
In middle school, I never started fighting back, okay? I just kept doing my own thing. I stayed alone for the most part. But then in high school, when I started to play tennis, there was a confidence boost because I was the only freshman on the team that made the varsity team. Yes, I was lucky.
It's fair now. It's like I can't compete with you on whiteness, but I can literally compete on everything else.
Oh, and so there was the way that the tennis team was set up is that we had 3 singles players and then we had 2 doubles teams. Okay, I couldn't beat the number 1 singles player. And by the way, if you know what year I went to high school, the number 1 singles player was a beautiful soul. She was an excellent human being. Some of the other girls, not so much, but our coach...
Didn't she have a little brother in your class, too?
He was not in my class.
Was he a year younger, maybe?
Maybe a year or 2 younger, but...
Okay, I know who you're talking about.
They're an excellent family. Excellent. I just love them. Anyway, our coach in high school, because I was the only freshman on the team, he was like, let's see what you're made of. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. He let me play against the singles players that were the number 1, number 2, and number 3 players. I smoked the number 3 singles player. I smoked her. And our coach, he was like, well, I don't know what to do. And he had this, like, seniority thing. Like, if they're seniors, you can't push them. You can't push them down.
Yeah, unless you're a lot better.
He also, might I add, this family donated a lot of money to our school. Donated a lot of money. So he couldn't do it. And he explained it to me. He was like, look, he didn't say anything about the money, obviously. But he was like, this is her last year here. I really can't take her. And I was like, that's fine. Like, I feel honored to even be on the varsity team. Like, I was a simple gal. Like, I was just so happy to be part of the team, part of the events, part of the dinners. That's it. Like, I was just happy that somebody gave me a chance to prove that I can play the sport and be like the cool kids. I don't know. But he knew, and I knew, that I was better than that third player. So that made me like the third best player on the team as a freshman. And that just meant so much to me. Like, man, I'm something. Like, I'm good enough. I can do something right. Like, and I think slowly people started to respect that. They were like, man, she really knows how to play tennis. It really did help that Osama was my brother and he was the #1 varsity guys player. And I just practiced with him all the time. But I got better and better because of him. And then eventually, every year I played tennis. And then eventually I became the best player on the team. And when you're the best player on the varsity team, everything changes. People want to be your friend. People want to talk to you. People want you to sit beside them at lunch. People want to hang out with you, like get ice cream. I was just like, what? I'm cool. Yeah, I was cool for a little bit there. It was nice.
You talk about how you were bullied as a kid, and I actually went the opposite direction. So I think before middle school, I was wearing the kufi, and I'd always wear it. And then when I got to middle school, I think the first day I wore it, they were like, no hats allowed. I'm like, well, that's easy. Took off the hat and I never wore it again. But I definitely wasn't like one of the cool kids. The thing that I really, really wanted was to play football. That's what I really wanted. And I was very small. So it didn't matter that I was just crushing in martial arts. It didn't matter because it's like, that's a different world. I want to be cool in this world. It's nice to be cool in that world, but we were so used to being first place in martial arts tournaments that it was like, that's boring. We didn't even have to train anymore. There's a tournament next month. I think I can make it. And you go, you win first place and you come back. But I wanted to be cool in school. I wanted to be cool in middle school and high school. I didn't get it in middle school. But in high school, I was like, okay, if I play football, I'm going to be cool. And then the first experience with the football team was in Bell Buckle, Tennessee, for the freshmen. You remember that?
Yeah.
You remember what happened?
I'm not going to ruin the story.
But I've already said the story, but I want to see if you remember the story.
Well, I remember that it was the entire football team and they had to like run up a hill or go up a hill and you were allowed to, I guess, like shove or tackle the other team member to get up to the top of the hill. And because you were one of the smallest guys, you actually hid to be able to not get in the way of the bigger guys and let the bigger guys tackle each other. So you hid until at the very, like, I guess the last minute. And I don't know if you tackled somebody. I don't know if you raced all the way up there and you beat everybody else. But I remember you ended up getting to the top of the hill or winning, getting there the fastest. And they said that because you didn't maybe participate, you couldn't win, and they gave it to the next guy. It was something.
No, they said I cheated.
Okay, even better.
Yeah, they said I cheated.
On the bar.
And they gave it to the white kid whose family donates a lot of money to the school.
There it is. There it is.
And then when I had these 2 years of experience in football, and that's why I was in the gym all the time. I was very, very strong for my weight. And I was like, look, I know that if they see how strong I am, how fast I am, how much I can jump, like how high I can, like they're going to want me on the team. It didn't matter. It didn't matter how good I was because it's as a team sport, it's hard to stand out that much. But if it's a one-on-one competition, it's like it's you and you're by yourself and no one can take that away from you. And that's why I went into springboard diving, because I wanted something where, okay, it's me. I'm the only one competing and you can't take it away from me. I wasn't fast enough to run like, track, varsity, or cross country, but springboard diving, I was good enough, and I was good enough to do it and compete at a state level with no coach. It was just, I can watch myself on TV. I can see what other people are doing. And I think that's why I went and joined the swim team. But the martial arts experience was, I think, a big confidence boost for me, because like I knew that I could beat people up, even though I was small. And I think I was more of a bully with my words than I was with my hands or feet. I was pretty aggressive with my words.
I would agree, and I would add that I think a lot of people knew not to argue with you because you probably upset them with your words. That actually reminds me of a time when there was a high school senior that was sitting at the lunch table across from me, and he had his lunch in front of him, and he picked up a napkin, and he put the napkin on top of his head, and he held it right here and started saying with his like group of friends, and I'm at the table right beside him, so I know he sees that I can see him, and I know he's mocking me, and for some reason I just decided to take out my phone and text you, and I'm like, hey, do you know this guy? He looks like this. He's wearing a
Varsity jacket?
Varsity jacket. I don't know if it had a number on it. I don't remember how I explained it to you, but you knew exactly who he was. And all you said was, meet me at the top of the ramp. Okay. So I think after the bell rang, I went up to the top of the ramp and you had told him to meet us there. And all you told him was, hey, man, you know this is my sister, right? And he was like, yeah, man. And you said something like, oh, I don't think it's right for you to mock her for her religious head covering or her scarf. That's very childish. And he said some other words and I looked into that guy's face and I remember him like shivering. And I'm just like, and he was taller than you and he was bigger than you.
Way bigger.
He was taller than you and he was bigger than you. But the words that were coming out of your mouth had him trembling. And I'm just like, what on earth is happening right now? That's all it took.
Well, look, I'll tell you something. If I see, still to this day,
do you know what I was talking about?
I know exactly.
Okay.
He's actually one of my good friends now. It changed. That changed the entire dynamic. In fact, me and him were the only ones that donated for our high school reunion.
Wow.
Yeah. So he runs a very successful, real estate company. I might actually bring him on the pod too.
I bet he doesn't even remember that.
Well,
you never know.
You don't. Yeah, I mean, everyone has different things that they remember, but you clearly remember when you were getting bullied and I stood up for you. Did that help at all when people realized you had older brothers in school? Because I was a senior, you were a freshman, and then Osama was a junior. So at least your freshman and sophomore years, you had that help. Were you as bullied in high school as you were in middle school?
So I don't know if I can directly correlate having the older siblings or being an awesome tennis player. It was probably a little bit of both.
Probably both, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact that with something as simple as texting you, that immediately stopped, obviously, like that gave me a boost of confidence. Like, oh man, I got people backing me up now, So I felt it was different. It was way different than being in middle school.
If your daughter was getting bullied at school, how would you tell her to handle it?
So I'd go the basic route. I would tell her to talk to the teacher and tell the teacher how it makes you feel. Like, what do you feel when this person is saying XYZ to you? That's how I would start. And then I would hope that she would come back to me and tell me, like, what happened and what the teacher's response was. And then if that didn't work, I would just ask for a parent-teacher conference or discussion. And if things still didn't change, then I would just have to talk to that child's parent. I know that sounds kind of, like, traditional, but that's the way that I would like to do it. And if all of the above don't work, then I would just tell Nan, what is he saying to you that's so hurtful? Now you find something that hurts him and say it back to him.
Would you give the same advice for your son?
So my son is very different. Okay, my son doesn't take shit from anybody.
We know where he gets that from.
No, see, my son, I think if you tell him,
he runs into a bigger kid. Like if he goes into a school.
But my son is tiny.
Yeah,
he's tiny, but he will still put in all his effort to knock you down. He is petite. No, I
little lion, big heart.
Yes, I truly don't worry about him. Like, maybe one day I will get to, but I don't worry about him. He will, if you hurt his feelings or if you hurt him in any way, or his little sister, he will find you. He will hurt you.
Is he protective over Leanne?
Yes, he loved her more than anything else. He loves Leanne. Yes. Alhamdulillah, very lucky. But I just hope our kids don't ever have to deal with that. I know it shapes the person that you are. I get it.
But they don't have to go through the exact kind of trauma.
I don't want that. I don't want that for them.
I don't consider my childhood experiences as trauma. I just consider them as childhood experiences that I learned how to categorize them in the future. Because it wasn't as clear to me as this was bullying. Maybe because I was more of a bully. to other people. And even though it was like I knew that I was being treated unfairly, I could still take care of myself. I could still hold my own. But I think the other thing was I never like after the whole high school experience, I didn't compare myself to other people anymore. Like I feel like because I had all these experiences and traveling and working and doing businesses, I felt like I was always talking to kids. And it's like I'm a grown ass man talking to this 18, 19-year-old kid. We're the same age, but I have so much more life experience. Did you feel like you got left out of that sort of life and business experience, or you had sort of your own experience in home?
Mm, I'm still like thinking about all the stuff that we just talked about.
I mean, we
No,
we were trying to shift gears a little
I
bit.
know I'm still like internally upset about everything we just discussed, you know?
Yeah, I'm upset too. That's why I want to change the mood a little bit because now we're gonna get into college. We're gonna get into life. We're gonna get into the fun stuff.
No, college was so different, man. I I finally got to a point where I just realized like focus on yourself, do your own thing. Like don't worry about these guys. Like do your own thing, you know? I just stopped caring about what people thought of me and I stopped caring about fitting in. Like it kind of happened a little bit in high school, but in college it really happened where I just stopped like you know like I don't care. And what's crazy is like the complete opposite experience happened in college from what happened to me in like middle school and high school because in college I became so popular. I was involved in all of the organizations, all the clubs. I was even nominated homecoming queen. I won homecoming queen. And I guess, you know, just really focusing on yourself and stop worrying about like what the other people are doing and, you know, just emphasizing trying to make yourself like the best version of yourself. That sounds so cheesy. But like just really working on yourself and like being true to yourself, people are attracted to that. People are attracted to like authenticity. They're attracted to like genuinely good. No, I don't know if I'm a genuinely good person, but just like genuine people. You know, I wasn't trying to fake it for anybody. I wasn't trying to act or buy certain clothes to look a certain way or just being regular. And
But do you think because you had those experiences being bullied as a kid, you were able to relate to so many people and you were just nice to people and that's what they liked?
100%, 100%. So every single time I'd meet somebody and I thought maybe they didn't have friends, I would jump to be their friend because I couldn't help but remember seeing myself. You know?
To be honest, I don't know.
Yeah.
I had a very different experience. I wasn't trying to look, man. I was not getting invited to parties. I was not getting invited to dinner. I was not getting like I had a very assertive personality, and for the longest time, I didn't really care because it's like, halas, it just is what it is. Um, but when you look it back at it, it's like, yeah, I wish I was more involved with with my friends and the community, but I sought fulfillment mainly from Baba. If Baba was proud of me, then nothing else mattered. And because I learned how to sell online and make money at a young age, that elevated my status in the family. And I'm like, okay, now I have something worthwhile. And that became more important than everything else. So sure, if I wasn't getting invited, I'd be like, screw it. I'll just go and make some sales tonight while they're all going out and partying. But over the years, now a lot of those people, like, they're not successful. They're still living with their parents. They still, they might have a small family, but they're still working the same job they did 15 years ago. And I guess me not being nice to people didn't really make a difference because I guess people don't really care about you after, like, we care about ourselves and think about ourselves way more than other people think about us. But do you think you being nice and those college experiences with people and the friends that you made, do you think that's actually benefited you today?
There's only one friendship that I made in college that has stayed with me. Other than that, I could see how a lot of the effort that I put into the organizations and the friend building kind of went to waste. But ultimately there might have been like some doors that were open because I met different people. Like there was some professors that I met. I don't even, I think maybe, I think initially, I wanted to be an elementary school teacher. I think initially. And I think that was my major. And then I met people that were into biology. And then I met somebody that was actually a PA or on the PA route. And I, met these people through the organizations that I was involved with. So I don't think everything that I was involved with or like, put a lot of effort into completely went to waste. I think all that kind of came together. But I probably put in a lot of time into building some relationships that really ultimately didn't matter. And now they don't matter. I don't even speak to those people.
But it changed you as a person. Like you learned how to communicate with people. You realized, well, I would say something that helped you a lot in college is you started learning how to dress and wear makeup, and you started becoming more attractive in college. Yeah, I mean, like that was yeah. I mean, come on now. We got those pictures of pull up some pictures from elementary and middle school.
All good.
Look, hey, I had a glow up too, if I'm being honest. Like my pictures from like middle school, high school, like I had really big ears and a small frame, and then I grew into it. So like in college, I was way more attractive than I was in high school or middle school. And then in law school, I think I still kept working out, still like, was a business person mainly. But I think in law school is when I realized I need to start being nice to people. Because in college, it didn't matter. My college experience wasn't like necessarily fun. It was more, you go, you get your grades, you get your 4.0, and you go back to work. And you do that over and over again. But your college experience was, I mean, you decided to go the pre-med biology route. Do you remember the first time that you decided, I want to become a PA or some sort of medical professional?
Yeah, actually, I do. Her name was Annabelle McKee. She was a professor. She was my environmental science teacher. And I was taking environmental science because I technically was not a biology major yet. I was still in general studies. It was my first year as a freshman. And I was in her class. And on my first test, I think I made an 80. And I was like, I love science, but I just can't get it. I just can't get it. And I don't want a major that I feel like I'm going to suck at and always study and never get the good grades. And she was like, no, like you got this. You can do this. And I started to like build this relationship with her. I started to spend more time with her, and she started to like just show me how to study. She taught me how to study. She was like, look, whenever you see this kind of question, you look at this specific word. If this word's comfort, it was just so many little things that she just taught me. And because of her, God, I need to find her. I need to find her. Be like, hey, I'm a PA.
I have that guy in my life too. I don't think I've ever mentioned it.
I need to find her. Man, she was excellent. And, environmental science is not even a biology degree class. It's not even, like, it doesn't even go, if you're trying to be a biology major, it's not even one of those classes. But because of her, she taught biology 1105 and biology 1107. Because of her 1105 class, I ended up getting an A in it. And when I got an A, she emailed me. She's like, see, I knew you could do it. And I don't know, just something about somebody believing in you, Like somebody that's higher than you, like, higher status than you, saying you can do it. I believe in you. It was just all I needed. And I was like, you know what? That's it.
I feel like I do that now for Reem.
Yeah. It's so meaningful. Like you need that person. You need that person in your corner.
Was I in your corner when you were in the PA school, or was I kind of busy leaving?
You were in law school still. You're still doing your own thing, right? Or I don't know where.
I mean, I remember you struggled a lot. I mean, look, school was always easy for me.
Shouldn't have gotten in is the truth.
But you accelerated the 1,000 hours or whatever experience that you needed to get. And
so the prerequisites to getting into PA school were you needed a certain GPA, you needed a certain GRE score, and you needed a certain amount of patient care experience. So I had the GPA, I had an exceptional GRE score, but I didn't have the patient care experience that they actually needed. But I was able to convince them that my hours were good enough as a pharmacy technician. So they needed patient care experience as in hands-on experience, like collecting vitals, taking blood, being a medical assistant, all the things that you would do, actually touching a patient. But I was a technician or I shadowed a pharmacist. I never actually did hands-on work. But because I guess my GPA and my GRE were so good, and also I interviewed very well. They really, really liked me. They decided that it would be okay for me to join the program. Now, I remember starting PA school, and the average age of the class was, I think, 28 years old. So that's just to kind of give you an idea of where people were in life, and also they didn't just finish undergrad and go straight to PA school. Like, they finished undergrad, they probably had a job, they probably did a couple of other things, and then they went into PA school. I was 21 starting PA school, so I was one of the youngest 3 in the class. And I remember thinking, listening to the professor talk and not even understanding what she was saying, because there were so many medical terms used in our first class that I couldn't keep up with. What every 5 seconds I was researching, or I was Googling, what does that word mean? What does that word mean? And I remember our first quiz failing it because there were 3 different questions where I didn't understand the medical terms in the question to be able to dissect the question, to be able to answer the question. And I knew the material and what it was, but there was just, it could be something as simple as understanding blood pressure. You know what? The question actually was, which of the following medications, or which of the following medications could possibly cause you to experience a syncopal episode? And I didn't know what syncopal episode meant.
You don't know what syncopal episode means? Oh my god.
Now I do. But
Basics. That's like Bio 101, dude. It's like 1107.
You know what syncope was whenever you were a freshman in college?
I knew it probably in 3rd grade.
Oh, is that so?
I don't think you remember how good of a student I was.
Yeah.
Well, no, honestly, I was pre-med first.
Okay, did you know what the word syncope meant at 18 years old? At 19 years old?
I'm just messing with you.
Okay.
But you know why I chose to not go the pre-med route?
Probably because there's a lot more money being a lawyer. I don't know.
Not at all. No. I did. So I was 4.0 student in college, but then after I did my first biology class and chemistry class, I didn't get to organic chem. I think chem 1211 and then 1212 and then bio 1107, 1108K for the lab. I remember those numbers. I was always good in math. So I was like, you can take me down the physics route, the math route, I'll be just fine. But then I remember looking at the course catalog. I was like, that's a lot of biology classes, like bio 1107, bio 1108, bio 1200, 1300, 4th route, 3000, 4000. I'm like, I cannot do this for 4 years just to be a doctor. And I didn't even think about medical school being the next 4 years and then residency. But if I liked biology, if I had that professor that I liked, I probably would have become a doctor. But instead, I had a lawyer, Professor Anthony Simons. His name was spelled Simones, Simones. And I remember the exact statement that he made that made me want to become a lawyer. It was in one of our criminal law classes or whatever it was as a prerequisite. The way I decided to go to college and which classes to select was I would go to ratemyprofessor.com and then I would see the average scores that people would get in that class. So in order to get a 4.0 in college, you just reverse engineer the likelihood of you getting an A by seeing how often that professor gives you A's. And I was in classes. I had a class called Queer Theory in Kennesaw State University. I had no idea that's what it was called. And I remember that they would compare the Dracula fangs as sort of a phallic symbol in penetrating their victims. That's the shit that I was learning just because I wanted to get a 4.0. But I remember in Dalton State, Anthony Simons, the professor, he was talking about this criminal law matter. And he was arguing as if he was the lawyer representing the client. And I remember he was standing in front of the class and he was saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, no, I implore you, no, I beseech you to treat my client with fairness." I was like, damn, if I can talk like that guy, I can get whatever I want out of this life. And Professor Simons is now, he's like a judge. He's a leader, I think, in Missouri. We still follow each other on LinkedIn. I give him updates. He sometimes comments on my stuff. But that was the reason that I decided to become a lawyer. And it had nothing to do with the classes or whatever. I was just like, I like the way that guy talks. And if I can talk that way, because I don't have that ability. I don't have the ability to communicate effectively and articulate using the right words at the right time. And I didn't realize that I had that skill up until recently, like very recently. One of my friends was telling me that he was asking me, how much of your English degree do you think led to your success today? I'm like, dude, I did English just for fun. I minored in Spanish and Chinese. I just wanted any easy degree just so I can get to law school. He's like, no, I think you have the ability to say the right word at the right time to elicit the right emotion from people. And that's why you're successful, because you have the ability to communicate. And no one had ever explained it to me. But now that I'm looking back, all these things happen in your life, and I'm looking back at it and I'm like, wow, I really wanted to have that ability to talk and express myself and articulate very well. And part of it was so people knew that I was smart. Like, I knew I was smart, but I want other people to know that I'm smart. And then add to that, I wanted to one up Brahim. He went to law school, and I'm like, okay, if he got the law degree, I'm going to get a master's in business. Whatever grades he got, I'm going to do better. So we always had that competitive nature where we leveled each other up. Who was the person that was leveling you up and pushing you up in the family?
I mean, I don't think anybody was pushing me out. I was just trying to keep up. I was just trying to keep up with you guys. It's as simple as it is. All of you guys got a professional degree, and I was like, you know what? I can't let the girls look bad, so I had to do something too. I don't necessarily think... everything would have been fine if I stopped at a biology degree, because I happened to meet my husband in undergrad, and he would have taken care of me. He's a pharmacist, but I just...
But that wasn't enough for you.
It just wasn't enough.
No, you wanted more.
Yeah, no, see, I don't necessarily... how people always say, the hustle is inside of you, how they say it? I don't necessarily know if the hustle is I just saw you guys, I wanted to be like you guys. Okay, man, they can do it. I can do it too. We come from the same mom and dad. We come from the same household. If they can do it, I can do it. Let's go. So, I don't know. I just did a little professional degree here and there and finished up.
What do you think about the women in this generation that focus more on their career and put getting married on the back burner? Do you think that it makes it harder for you to attract a potential spouse if you're going so down the education route, that it sort of limits your options? Or do you think you can actually do both?
Man, when you ask it, I just realized, wallahi, how fortunate am I? Alhamdulillah, how everything lined up for me in a way that, I couldn't have planned it better for myself. I literally met my husband in undergrad right before I needed to go to graduate school. And my dad is very traditional. My dad was not going to allow me to leave the house, no matter what. Actually, the only way I was going to be allowed to leave the house is if, number one, I got married and my husband was with me for graduate school, or number two, one of my brothers went to the graduate school with me. And guess who wanted to go to graduate school with me out of all my siblings? This guy right here. You were going to go to graduate school with me. You were going to take me to California. Do you remember that? Do you remember our conversation? You were like, I'll go with you. You just get in and I'll go with you. I'll do law in California. That'd be cool. We'd live by the beach. You remember that?
I do remember that.
Yeah,
I'm a ride or die.
You are a ride or die. You are.
I got you. I got my whole family.
Yeah, no, literally. I remember interviewing in Pomona. I think Pomona, is that?
Yeah.
I interviewed. Yeah. So Mama and Bubba went with me for an interview in California because I was like, Adi's out. He'll go with me. So
you want to know something crazy? That was at least 10 years ago.
It was at least 10 years ago.
Just last year, I had the same conversation with Reem. I said, if you apply to law school in another state, I will make sure that you can get in. Baba and Mama will follow you. You're the last girl in the house, so they have no one else to spend their time with. You think it's a little unfair that Reem gets to go live in Florida while you had to actually be married to do law? Or is it? It doesn't matter now.
It doesn't matter now, and also, alhamdulillah, for how it worked out for me, because, with having a husband, I didn't have to think about rent. I didn't have to think about food. I didn't have to think about any extra expenses other than the expense of school. So, I don't know. We plan, they plan, but God's the best planner. So, alhamdulillah, I was just very lucky. No, but really, I applied to school in California, went to interview in California, and I was ready to go in California. And then a week later, I'm at Adil, and I was like, oh, how convenient. And Baba told Adil, look, if you guys work out, that's excellent. But my number one rule is that you allow her to finish her education. He's like, you let her finish her education, and then you allow her to decide if she wants to work or if she wants to stay home. So if she decides to work, excellent. If she decides to stay home, excellent. Just allow her to get her education. And I was like, sure, not a problem. And that guy did good. He was a nice guy. literally picked up his whole life, which I guess you do when you get married, but he was living in Bicknell, Indiana. He came to meet me in Dalton, Georgia, and then we moved in together in Knoxville, Tennessee for me to go to PA school.
Shout out to Adil. We got to get him on the pod too. But it's also like Adil's family also knew what they were getting. So it wasn't so much that
So you say family, right? You say family.
it was his dad.
The dad a little bit, but it was his grandma. It was his dad's mom.
Oh yeah, that's why we had the wedding up there in Michigan.
Yes. So Adil actually was letting his parents know, hey, I'm ready for marriage. Like, find me a suitor, find me somebody,
I would tell you for sure that was your best wedding ever.
What? My best wedding? What do you mean?
Yeah.
The best wedding? Like the best?
That was your best wedding.
I've only had one wedding.
Yeah, I know. So it's easy to be number one. Like there's no one else to compete with. No, but that wedding was that was fun. I remember the food was awesome. The way we
family styles.
The family, we went and got the grandma because she wasn't able to travel. But yeah, it was his grandma that was like.
So Adil's dad actually called Baba, and he was like, "Hey, I heard that you have a daughter. Is she looking to get married?" And Baba was like, "Absolutely, let your son come meet her." And Adil had received the news that I am allowing him to come, meet me. And he decided he didn't want to. He decided that he was going to wait maybe a month, maybe 2 months. And then his grandma got word that there's a Palestinian girl that's, I hate to say it like this, but she's educated. She's smart. She's pretty. She comes from a good family. And his grandma was like, "Are you crazy? You were gonna go meet her." And he was like, "Sito, like, I have this going on and I have that going on." And she's like, "No, if you love me, you're gonna go see her." And Allah yarham, because if it wasn't for her, who knows if he would have come to meet me, because he kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. But finally, he came to meet me and he was like, "She's the one." Alhamdulillah. So
Alhamdulillah, Grant. Really, it's so important to have family around you that gives you good advice and he shows you the things that you might not be aware of. Let me ask you about, we talked a lot about your dynamic and relationship with your brothers, but how about your relationship with Reem, our little sister?
She's like a daughter to me, wallah. Like I feel like I'm her mom in so many like aspects of life. It hasn't been until recently, till she now like moved away, that I feel like I'm more of a sister to her. Actually, I should say maybe when I moved away is when everything changed, because she was always like, I felt like I was always kind of like hovering over her and making sure she was doing things correctly and just being more of a motherly figure to her, because we're 5 years different, and I just felt like that was a significant difference.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's different when your sister's 5 and you're 10. Yeah, that's a big difference. You double the age.
Yeah, I felt like I had to be like a mom to her. So I guess when I got married and moved to PA school, our dynamic changed. We became more sisterly, and then like best friends. All of our problems. It's so funny that she's in law school right now, because I remember FaceTiming her while I was in PA school, calling her, because she's the only one that whenever I would talk to her and I would express my emotions, she would match me exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was mad, she was mad. If I was happy, she was ecstatic. If I started crying, she would cry so much more than me. It was like she would always match my energy. And so every time I would take a test and I felt like I was failing, and I'd call her crying, she would start crying more than me, as if she like studied so hard and she failed the test.
She's a sweetheart.
She's so sweet. And now she calls me after her test. She's like, I'm like, "I feel you, Reem." She's like, "I know, that's why I'm calling you." It's so funny how things happen, where we were and where we are. And now she's the one that's calling me about her tests and how she's doing. Alhamdulillah.
Do you remember your decision to put on the hijab? What was that like? Be honest.
I think that it was easy for me because my mom wore the hijab, It's all I knew. It's all I saw. And we had some of our uncles around and their wives, and we saw them wear the hijab. And our family did a really good job at showing how respected you are as a woman who wore the hijab.
We made it a big deal.
We did. We made it a big deal to wear the hijab. And it didn't necessarily seem, I don't remember being intimidated to wear the hijab. I had no idea everything was going to entail. I didn't know what was going to what was going to happen at school. Honestly, if I knew how I was going to if I knew how people would respond to me at school, I probably would have pushed off wearing it or probably would not have worn it. But I think it was the summer before 6th grade when my dad had a conversation with me and he was telling me, I noticed that you wear your hijab when you go to Sunday school and then you don't wear your hijab when you're out in public. He was like, the hijab is something to be proud of. It's something to wear proudly. You should put it on and be confident in yourself. I really want you to think about this decision. I don't want you to keep putting it on and taking it off. It doesn't look good and it doesn't look right and it seems like you don't really respect it. And I need you to respect the hijab because it's an important part of our religion. And so he just left it like that. And it was almost like, if you don't wear it, I'm going to be disappointed in you, and it's all about pleasing your parents, right? Or a lot of it is you want to make your parents as proud as possible. It didn't seem like a big deal. It didn't seem like a big deal when I decided to put the hijab on, but that's because I didn't know everything it would entail until later. But I put the hijab on and I started to struggle a lot. And absolutely, it crossed my mind how much easier life would be if I didn't have the hijab on. But then I decided, who am I trying to be? Like, who am I? What am I doing? Am I actually a Muslim? Am I, proud of being a Muslim? Do I only care about what other people think? Like, these are a lot of things that as an 11-year-old, like, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was doing. All I knew is that Muslims wear the hijab. That's all I knew. Muslim women wear the hijab because I wasn't necessarily around a lot of people that didn't wear the hijab. I knew Muslims wore the hijab. And I know that my dad would be very proud of me if I wore the hijab. So I decided to put on the hijab. And then when I thought about taking it off, I was like, it's only bad right now. Like, it has to get better because mama can do it. And mama doesn't even speak English that well. Like, mama's doing it. If mama can do it, why can't I do it? And I think having a really solid motherly figure around you that wore the hijab proudly and also wore it very well. I remember so many teachers telling us, your mother is so beautiful. And that always stuck with me. They would say, she's so beautiful and so elegant. So because mama would wear the hijab and wear the abaya and it came together very nicely. You remember Miss Sanders? Every time she would see mama, she would say, she is so beautiful. And I always thought, well, I want people to say that about me, And so I think really having mama wear the hijab and wearing it, like, she couldn't possibly have, there was no other option in her head. Like, why would I ever consider not wearing the hijab? That really, kind of gave me the motivation to want to wear it.
Did you ever ask Baba or Mama about potentially taking off the hijab?
No, because I didn't want to be a quitter. I know it's hard and I know it's challenging. Like, I know a lot of people struggle with looking a certain way. And I know we all have our own, demons we're fighting and challenges and stuff. But it was so important for me to put the hijab on and keep it on and not look like I was going back and forth with my religion or unsure of who I was or insecure about my decision. I wanted to just kind of be solid. Put the hijab on, that's it. I'm a hijabi Muslim woman. That was it. I wish it was that easy for other people because I have so many friends, so many excellent Muslim friends, so many great people that struggle so much with the hijab. I actually have a very close friend that just put the hijab on and she's like, it's just so hard for me. I just cannot do it. So she took it off and I'm like, it will come to you. It will. I promise you, it will come to you. You will put it on and it will feel right and you're not going to want to take it off. And I think that's kind of what happened to me.
So how do you want to bring up that conversation with your daughter?
I knew that was coming. I hope that Layan, my 2-year-old right now, sees me and sees her grandma and sees her Aunt Reem and sees all of her uncle's wives wearing the hijab so proudly and so confidently that she won't ever think twice about it. That's what I hope for her. Because I know that can happen. I know. Do you remember Reem would wear the hijab in 2nd grade at school and for picture day? Because she was so proud of it. Do you remember that? Reem loved to wear the hijab. And I think it's because she saw that Mama and I were wearing it. So she was like, I can wear it too. And she was so proud of it. And if anybody said anything, Reem is a firecracker. If anybody said anything to Reem, she would get him. But that's my hope for Layan. I hope it's something like she's looking forward to it. Inshallah. Like, it
Inshallah.
would make it so much easier.
Inshallah. And we're going to make it a big deal for her, inshallah. And you're going to do a, hijab party.
Yeah, that'd be so cute. Inshallah, one day you have a daughter and you can have this conversation with her too.
Inshallah. I mean, look, you were talking about how we really just didn't want to disappoint our parents. A lot of the decisions that we made in life were because we wanted to keep our parents proud. I mean, I still do it to this day. Law school was a big decision just to make Baba proud. Osama went to MBA school to make Baba proud. I mean, being successful, being number one all the time, it's to make our parents proud. And I don't know what it was about Baba. Maybe it was like the way that we were raised. Obviously, we just looked up to him a lot. And I think it was also because Mama really treated him like the king of the house. And whatever Baba said, it happened. And no matter what we did or where we went, when Baba made a decision, we're all following. And he also allowed us to become men at a very young age.
I agree.
So when we made a decision, even if it was wrong, no one is allowed to go back on another person's word. If I said, hey, I'm going to give you this for this price, or if I decided as a family we're going to make this commitment, everyone's going to follow and no one's going to deviate from that course of action. When did you feel like you started becoming a leader in the family?
I'm a leader in the family.
I think people lean on you a lot for things that no one else can. Like no one else can do. You're the oldest in the Awad family, female. You're the first that had gone the medical route. You're the first Awad in the family, period, female, that has gotten a postgraduate degree. You're the first person. We could talk about the financial success. Obviously, I don't know if you want to get into all that, but like, you were straight up making doctor money when no other female in the family was even remotely close to that. And so even if you don't think that you're a leader, I think a lot of people still look up to you and still see you as sort of that example. But did you ever feel like you were like something changed when you're like, okay, now I'm this person and I'm someone that other people look up to. And so I have to carry myself a certain way. And even if it's indirect, I'm still leading my community, my family, my friends.
To influence other Muslim women was always the goal. Always. Because I feel like sometimes people look at me as a Muslim hijabi woman with my kids at the grocery store or something, and they're just like, oh, she's probably just no offense to any stay-at-home mom, right? That's the hardest job now that I'm a stay-at-home mom. It's exhausting, God bless. But like, people see me at the grocery store and they're just like, oh, she's this or she's that, whatever. As soon as I open my mouth and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm an orthopedic physician assistant, like, I see so many people taken aback. They're like, oh, you're a PA. And I'm like, yes, I'm a PA. Oh my gosh, I'm actually educated. I actually, went to school and know how to communicate. Or I don't know, you just feel like people automatically put you in a bubble because you're a Muslim woman and you're a they automatically assume you're uneducated. They automatically assume that you allow your husband to just take care of everything, not just, in the house, and not just outside the house and finances and stuff. You don't necessarily have a say in anything. And so now that I've gotten to a point where I do have a graduate degree and I had a job and I have kids and stuff, I want to show other Muslim women that it's truly not that hard. Just believe in yourself and push yourself and get to this point, and always have something for yourself.
What advice would you give to Muslim women in America?
Don't allow yourself to fit in the bubble. Don't allow yourself to see yourself as a Muslim woman that is. This is how I think people see Muslim women. I think people see us as uneducated, as people that don't know how to express themselves or their emotions. They are
second class.
If even that, even lower, I feel like, because my husband is half Caucasian, okay? And yesterday, he was at the library with our daughter, and he walked in with my daughter, okay? And I noticed how people around talk to him and how they're smiley and how they're so friendly. It's still happening, They're so friendly to him.
I mean, he's a handsome fella,
I know. that he's handsome, but also he has Caucasian, he has fair skin, light eyes.
White skin, greenish blue eye, like
He-
looks like a straight up white boy. He does. I mean,
He's a handsome guy.
he looks like who's that character? He kind of looks like
Rapunzel.
yeah.
Flynn Rider. We get that all the time. Everybody's like,
I mean, mashallah, he literally looks like a
Oh.
cartoon character of like the prince. He looks like a prince in a cartoon movie. That's what he looks like.
he's a good-looking man. Yes, I would agree. So
But do you think it's like, do you think he gets treated that way because of his looks or because of his Americanness, because of his whiteness?
Okay, I think it's because he's white, because I don't think I'm ugly. You know what I mean? So like when I walk into a room with my daughter, the relationship with others around us is not nearly the same as when my husband walks in with our daughter. So we were just in the library and I saw the way that people interacted with him. And I was like, wow, everybody here is so nice. And then he went to the bathroom and then all of a sudden, like the energy shifted, it changed. It was just me and my daughter. And people weren't necessarily as social. They weren't, being as friendly with my daughter. I was like, what on earth just happened? And I knew what happened. The handsome white guy wasn't there anymore,
Was it all just a bunch of old white women that was hitting on him? Is that what it was?
No, they were like my aged women. They were all
Even worse.
I don't think they were hitting on him though, because they all had kids. Like we were in the library at the kids section. I get it, but it was just like,
Are you protective over your husband?
not really. Like I mean, a little bit maybe, but I just couldn't help but notice like the way people interacted when he was there and the way that they interacted when I was there. And I feel that if I looked more like him, the same energy would have been carried through the whole time. As in lighter skin, lighter hair, lighter eyes, look more white Caucasian,
Do you feel like you still have to overcompensate because you're a hijabi Muslim?
I absolutely do, but I don't think that that's a bad thing. Okay? I think that
Do you think this is just the struggle that Muslim women have to go through in order to earn sort of equality in America?
okay, yes, but I don't love the way that was phrased, because if you are trying your best to showcase Muslim women in the brightest light, then you're doing something for the entire ummah, like all of Islam,
Yeah.
I am so eager whenever I have a patient or a client or anybody, I'm so eager to just mind blow them with my care or my compassion when they're my patient, or the detail to little things if they're a client in anything for me. Like if we're just talking about anything, I just want to do the most, like even more than the most, because I want them to be like, oh my God, that lady, that Muslim woman is what I want them to say. That Muslim woman, she really knows what she's talking about. She really cares. She's excellent. That was the best thing about working in orthopedics and pain management, when people would leave my clinic or the clinic that I was at, and they would say, that was the best appointment I've ever had. And I just think to myself, and I want you to remember that. And I want you to remember that was the best appointment with a Muslim hijabi woman. That's what I want people to remember. It's crazy that that's like, I have this personality now because of my hijab. So I couldn't ever take off my hijab. Who would I even be? I wouldn't be the same person. I wouldn't be so motivated to be so like outgoing and, social with people and like care so much about what they think about me, because then it wouldn't matter, because then I wouldn't look like a Muslim anymore. So
you still try to overcompensate and try to give people the best possible experience, not just because you're Muslim, but because that might be the first time they experience
absolutely
talking to a Muslim, and you want to make sure it's the best possible experience that they have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If I'm being honest, I don't think I have that much pressure, obviously. But I do think
Your name is Ali, so you still have some.
No, I have other pressure, because in the legal space, it's very common to drink alcohol, very common to have parties, very common to do drugs, very common to pay interest and usury and take things on credit and loans. It's even attorneys have a very bad, reputation generally. They're called ambulance chasers, and you want to change the perspective of people when it comes to Muslims. But then I have a double layer of, he's also like an ambulance chasing, money hungry attorney. And so, but I didn't want me being Muslim to ever be a disadvantage. Like, I can still do everything that everyone else does, but I have morals. I have lines that I draw, and this is how I operate. And it took a long time, especially I think with the genocide in Gaza. I think now people see, oh, he's always been this guy. It's not that he just popped up out of nowhere. Now I think millions of people know who I am, and I've gotten that sort of exposure online. But if I wasn't proud of my identity as a Muslim or proud of my identity as a Palestinian, then it wouldn't be real. It wouldn't be authentic. So I have some rapid fire questions for you before we let you go. Okay. We didn't actually talk about martial arts too much. How has martial arts shaped you as the person you are today?
So it's important to note that I did martial arts from the age of 5 to 10. And then I did a little bit of martial arts 16 and 17 years old, which was a completely different experience because at 16 and 17 I wore the hijab. But from 5 to 10 years old, I think it helped me mostly with like forcing myself to not give up, right? Because I wasn't like you guys. You guys got first place all the time. All the time. I got first place sometimes, right? You guys are just born exceptional, but I mean,
it wasn't just it was the standard that Bubba set. Bubba was very hard on us growing up. He beat us up a lot. Like we were. I mean, you can call it physical abuse. I call it raising men.
yeah.
Very, very tough on us. And like, I wouldn't dare come home with a B.
Oh yeah, this is true. This is true.
If I didn't have A's, my dad wouldn't talk to me. If I wasn't making significant sales in the business and bringing in money, I didn't have any value to the family. For the longest time, I thought my value was how much money I made. That was it. And that's how I used to value other people. It's like, I'm going to talk to you first. I want to know how much money you're making because then I can decide if your opinion matters. But after gaining the respect and the admiration of my father and honestly my older brother too, Brahim, then it was like, okay, well, I no longer have to prove myself anymore. Like those are the people that and then I actually didn't have to prove myself to my wife's family too, because I didn't want to be seen as lesser than because they're all a family of surgeons. And I didn't want to be seen as lesser than as an entrepreneur, lawyer. But I don't feel like I have to prove anything to anyone anymore. I used to care what other people think. And I still carry myself as I know this is a representation of Islam with me being Muslim, and I want people to have that best experience possible with a Muslim. But I don't have to prove anything to anyone. Do you still feel like you have to prove yourself?
It's not necessarily proving myself to anyone. It's just doing my best at all times to be able to, continue to represent Muslims in a good light. That's all it is. I'm not trying to be fake in how I talk to people or how I interact with others. I'm just trying my best. And all I care about is making Muslim people look like some of the greatest people.
So karate helped you to never give up, to become more competitive, even though you got bullied after you became a black belt.
Yeah. So, girls don't really fight, and girls are more emotional, right? So when my feelings would get hurt, I wouldn't think to punch the girl in the face.
That's something different that I would advise, because I only have 2 boys right now. Inshallah, like 4 children. But if my kid was being bullied, my immediate reaction would not be to talk about the feelings. My immediate reaction would be, well, let me teach you how to throw a good punch. And then once you hit him in the nose.
But that doesn't make you the winner, right? Like, you're going to experience conflicts all the time. It would be nice.
No, physical abuse. If a kid is physically abusing my kid, yeah, if a kid is bullying my kid.
Oh, that wasn't clear. The question was not clear. If it was physical abuse, oh no, we're throwing hands.
Yeah, okay, good.
No, that wasn't clear.
Yeah, okay.
What, I'm a black belt and I'm going to say, let's talk about our feelings?
Yeah. Verbal abuse.
Okay.
Yeah, verbal abuse. I think I can teach my kids how to hold their own verbally.
Okay.
I don't think that's good. But the thing was, I learned wittiness. I was voted most witty. I think it was in high school or
that was your senior superlative.
And it was really because Baba was very sharp. He's still very sharp. Yeah. Obviously things have slowed down, but Baba's response time with things was just incredible.
Absolutely.
And so anytime someone tried to insult me, I had 10 insults in the chamber ready to go.
Ready to go.
Ready to go. And like, I would make you hate your life and hate the moment you ever came into existence after I spoke to you. Because I was not going to allow anyone to feel like they won over me with just their words. And I never actually had to use my hands. I never had to actually physically hurt anyone. So I didn't really get bullied because I think people backed off just with the verbal responses.
Yeah, you're like that. Yes.
But I think I had to do that because I was small. I was a very tiny kid. And I wasn't...
I mean, even if it got to the point where you had to fight with somebody, I think you could handle yourself.
No, I would have got my ass kicked. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? There's cases, especially high school.
I remember you being fast and I remember you being strong, okay? Like, the only thing that they would have...
Let's be honest, though. If a kid is twice your size, height, weight, all they had to do was just sit on me. That was it. I mean, it was game over. Like,
yeah, let's get on top.
Yeah, there's an element of being able to fight and hold your own, but we also learn martial arts in terms of, like, kicking someone a very specific way or pushing someone at
point
fighting.
Yeah.
We weren't like, you know...
Jiu-jitsu.
Right. So I'm glad I never had to prove it. I think now it's kind of like it's silly to get into a fight, you know?
I agree.
Physically.
Yeah.
But like when you're a kid, you have to get beat up. You know, you have to get punched in the face. You have to get kicked in the stomach. You actually have to feel what it's like to be physically hurt. And then you realize, man, okay, I have to be able to protect myself, but I never want anyone else to feel that way.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to protect yourself. What's your favorite Palestinian dish?
I don't know if this is Palestinian, but hands down, it's always mnukhi. I think that's Egyptian. But I think Palestinian is, I love mansa. That's Palestinian.
Yeah, mansa.
And مسخن.
Yeah,
مسخن is made right.
So mnukhi is, what kind of leaves are they? What's it called in English?
I think I would imagine it's manuka.
Is it? I think it's, the manuka leaves. And then it's like, so we do it in like a soupy style. But when I married, my wife, she's Syrian. They do it like mnukhi bil wara. So it's like not the soupy style. It's like the
actual.
Yeah, it's the leaves. Yeah. The leaves cooked in sort of like a broth with like chicken chunks.
Delicious.
With spices. So good with rice.
So delicious.
So good. And sakhan is basically like bread with onions and spices and chicken. You can do them with like shredded chicken, but you can also do them with like chicken quarters. Yeah, that's actually good too.
Yeah, delicious.
Oh man, I'm so hungry. Okay, you didn't travel much. Obviously, like our parents didn't let girls travel on their own. That just wasn't a thing. And if I'm being honest, if I have girls, God blesses me, my girls are not traveling without me or without their husband. Bottom line, that's just how it is. And if my wife thinks it's unfair that like, oh, well, why do you have different standards for men and women? Well, because men and women are different. That's why. But I'm not going to make it, I'm going to give them a better experience. It's like if I have a daughter and she gets approved into a school and we're moving and we're getting a nice house and we're getting an apartment, we're getting everything set up for you. And if you want to have a swimming pool, you want to invite your girlfriends over, we'll have a rooftop pool. Like that's my job. Yeah. I'm going to make sure that you have that experience. But
so you're not going to limit her because
I'm not going to limit her.
Yeah, that's it.
But I have rules.
That's it. Yeah.
I have rules. I'm not going to limit her. I'm going to give her way more. But, because it's, I want to take care of my daughter.
Absolutely.
But if you could travel anywhere in the world right now, where would you go?
Probably the Maldives.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That does sound nice.
The Hood can't go there.
The Hood can't go there?
Hood can't go there.
You're not able to Hood.
Pass the law or something where if you have a Israeli passport, you can't come in.
Man, I want to go to the Maldives, but you don't travel much. Is it because like
husband doesn't really like to travel? But now he's starting to get into it. Now he's like, hey, let's go do this. And I'm just like, now? When do we have kids?
I think when you have a lot more financial freedom, you want more experiences. Yeah. And then there's certain things that you have to take care of first. Like once the house is taken care of, the cars are taken care of, the kids is like, trust fund or whatever, savings is set up. Now it's like, okay, we can, take a little bit of a break, If you had to choose one brother to be your personal bodyguard for a day, who would it be and why?
I think this is a very obvious answer. This would be Omar. Have you met Omar?
He was just in here. No, Omar is intimidating, bro.
Omar is intimidating. He's just the guy. If you need something done, something handled, he's your guy.
He is, man. Mashallah alayh. All right, and last question. What's the best piece of advice that mama ever gave you?
Okay, so one is obvious. And then I have another one that's not as obvious. Like, as in, probably every mother tells her daughter this. But mama always told me, get your degree and work with your degree.
Yeah.
Be self-sufficient, You never know what happens. You never know. Alhamdulillah, I was blessed with an amazing guy, but you never know the kind of guy that you're going to marry. You might marry a lazy bum that doesn't want to work. That could be a thing. You might marry somebody that, la samahallah, God forbid, gets in a car accident and can't support you, can't provide for you. Get your degree and work with it. That was like,
Or even abusive, man. You know how
this
many
is true.
how many
And you can't
emails I've
leave.
heard of that get in relationships not knowing who they're getting married to. Man ends up being very abusive, and the woman has to fend for herself. And usually it's not physically. You're not going to be able to physically harm a man unless you're using weapons. And
Yeah.
really, you have to intellectually be more adept. You have to understand the world. You have to have the ability to get a job anywhere. You have to have the ability to take yourself out of that crappy situation, and especially if you have children. Be like, look, I'm going to save some money. I'm going to figure out the situation. And that was an advice that our mom gave us was, whatever you do, make sure you get a degree and earn your way with your degree. But interestingly for me, that was bad advice for me, because my mom also she didn't like taking risks. So mama wanted me to work with my degree and go get a job with my degree. And I'm like, okay, so where am I going to work? And she'd say, well, no, go work at a big law firm. I was like, okay, well, what if I owned the big law firm? She's like, no, سيبك من هاي الفكرة. Don't keep that idea away. Just go and work.
Too ambitious.
Yeah. But then I remember on Mother's Day in 2018,
I have that video.
when I got Mama her first Mercedes SUV. She had a car before then. There's a story as to why I wanted to get her the Mercedes, because she never enjoyed the Mercedes she bought 10 years before. But I think that's when Mama realized, okay, maybe this guy is onto something.
Yeah.
So I still got my degree, but I worked, in a different way. But I do want to ask you, what is the not so obvious advice that your mom gave you?
Mama used to always tell me, and I never understood this. She used to always tell me, don't laugh too loud. Don't laugh too loud. It might attract the wrong kind of attention and the wrong people.
That's good advice.
And I never understood until now, because I can see how that, and you might look silly in certain situations that you don't want to look silly in. That also came with, like, don't be too loud. You don't want to be the loudest person in the room, especially they say that the smartest people and the strongest people are usually the quietest ones. And Mama used to always tell me, don't laugh too loud, don't be too loud. I never knew why she was telling me that, but now I always try to remember, like, if I'm gonna laugh at something, laugh quietly.
No, that's good advice. I asked, all of my siblings that question. Everyone had different advice. Everyone has something very
You're a
unique.
girl, so I think
Yeah,
it's
but-
very specific.
Yeah,
to
but
me
that
too.
advice that you just shared with us is actually very similar to the advice that Baba gave to Osama.
What was?
You have to watch the episode to find out. Apart from this, hard exterior shell that we have, I think we're all soft and we have big hearts and we want to take care of other people, because we've experienced what it's like to not be taken care of. We've experienced the lights getting cut off. I don't remember any day growing up without cockroaches in the house.
Oh my God.
Like, I was always embarrassed to have friends over at my house. I never had friends over at my house. In fact, I kept looking forward to the new house that we were building. I gave my dad all of my savings, $13,000 when I was 13, another $15,000 when I was 17, just so we could finish renovating the house, and never got done. By the time it got done, I'd already moved to another city and had to start my own life. And so those experiences definitely molded who I am. And I think your experiences of getting bullied as a kid also molded who you are. But is there any last words of wisdom that you'd want to give, let's say, to the, young Muslim girls that are out there that are watching and listening?
If anybody tells you you can't do it, prove them wrong. And if you need somebody to guide you or support you in any way, I'd be happy to help you. Especially if you're in the Atlanta area where I could physically be around, but anywhere in the United States or outside of the United States, I would love to give you some feedback. I actually used to have a website where I'd write some of my stories about things that I was experiencing as a hijabi woman, and then it got kind of overwhelming after having kids and stuff. So
You need to bring that.
I should bring that back. I wrote a story about to scrub or not to scrub once. I don't know if you remember that story, but it was pretty much about how intimidating it was to ask the surgeon if he could turn around while I was scrubbing in the operating room. Because, when you're scrubbing, you scrub all the way up to your elbow, and also your neck is exposed, and then also they need to gown you. So you have short sleeves on, and then they gown you. And I didn't know how to ask the surgeon. I was so intimidated. I was so scared. I was worried that he would yell at me. And alhamdulillah, I had an excellent experience. He actually, not only did he step out of the room when I needed to pray, he told all the male technicians to also step out of the room just so I can scrub in and be ready for the surgery without breaking any rules of the religion. So you never really know these obstacles that you might experience in life. Like, some people might have already experienced it. Don't be shy to ask people for help, or shoot people an email or a text message to see if they're willing to give you any advice, because I definitely would love to share any advice about anything that I might have gone through life that could be consistent with what you're currently going through, or anything for that matter in regards to wearing the hijab and just going through struggles being in the South or in America for that matter.
How can people find you? How can they follow you and reach you?
I have an Instagram. It is at certified PA hijabi. And I also have my little weight loss clinic Instagram page that I just started 2 weeks ago. It's at weight loss _ with Malaka. So
at certified.pa.hijabi for her main account. And then if you want to get some advice on weight loss and you want to do it the safe way, this is the go-to person in our community for our entire family for all medical stuff. Malika, thank you so much for joining us today at the Awad Pod. I hope you had a good time.
It's good.
And I think people are going to enjoy this episode. Thank you guys so much for joining us today on the Awad Pod. And we will see y'all on the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.